watching children's programming.
Welcome everybody to the inaugural episode of Children's Programming.
With your hosts, Nick Paradies and Matt Dixon.
Yes, Matt Dixon is here as well. Yes, this is our first episode of Children's Programming. A long time coming here, Nick Paradies.
Indeed it is. I'm very glad to be here in your bedroom recording this episode.
Well,
looking at all your fine posters on the wall.
Yes.
Wonderful details of things.
Can you tell I'm a fanboy?
Yes. I was explaining to a couple friends of mine the other day the interactions we have where like we'll just one up each other with saying ridiculous shit.
Such as?
Like I'll say alas and you'll say alas indeed. And I'll say something else that's stupid.
Therefore.
Yeah. So expect a lot of that on this show.
How art thou? All that good stuff.
So who are we, Dixon? Who are we?
We're Matt Dixon and Nick Paradies.
Yes, but who are we beyond that?
We're the two most successful filmmakers of the 2020s.
Yes.
Allegedly, according to a tweet by one Nick Paradies.
Yes. It is correct. Future Oscar winners in this room. Future Golden Globe winners.
If we win an Oscar,
and Golden Globe runners up.
There we go.
I'd rather be second than first.
What does second ever get remembered for?
Well, we're going to talk about things that second got remembered for today on the show.
What was that topic you were referring to?
Sports.
Sports? Oh, yes.
It's a sports-related topic.
Yeah, so today's episode is going to be about sports. Sports. We love the sports. Big sports ball.
Sports ball.
I don't know how to make this natural without seeming like I'm trying to do like the whole, I'm talking into a microphone voice thing.
It does not sound natural at all right now.
No, it's very uncomfortable sometimes talking into a mic.
Let's just have a regular conversation instead of this.
Yeah. I just saw Uncut Gems.
Oh yeah?
Yeah.
I would love to talk about my current situation, but I can't do that without shouting people out. So we'll talk about Uncut Gems.
Yeah, because I don't think we can talk about your personal problems without revealing names and or
too much.
You're revealing definitely too much there.
Tell me about Uncut Gems because I have seen this film also. Why don't we do we'll do a section at the start of every show about what we've recently been watching, what we've recently been listening to.
Yeah, that's okay. Stuff. So Uncut Gems I was looking forward to after you showed me Good Time, so I was like Safdie Brothers all the way now.
Of course.
Because obviously Good Time, fantastic movie. Robert Pattinson, great performance.
Is it far enough out that we can do spoilers at this point?
I think it's still like an underappreciated movie, if anything. So I think a lot of people
hold off on
that are discovering the Safdie Brothers, because this is really, I think it's their third film, Uncut Gems. They made a lot of short films.
I don't know. I couldn't tell you what's a short and what's a feature length, other than that Good Time and this are feature length. And there's one on Netflix, I believe, Heaven Knows What.
That's the other one I heard about. I literally know nothing about it.
I have it in my queue, but I know it's like it's about a heroin addict who's played by a real heroin addict. That's the only thing that I know.
Were they a heroin addict at the time of the shooting, or?
I believe so. Yeah.
So they were an actor who was currently at the time a heroin addict.
Yeah.
That's very interesting. I'll have to give that one a look, because this and Good Time have been
excellent,
making me love the Safdie Brothers.
Do you think that this is a career best Adam Sandler performance? Because I heard people a lot of saying like, Punch Drunk Love, all of that stuff, Reign Over Me, all his like big drama roles.
Truthfully, I've never seen an Adam Sandler movie that he's been critically acclaimed for until this point.
You've seen Adam Sandler movies.
I've seen some Adam Sandler movies.
Which Adam Sandler movies have you seen?
I like the Billy Madison era.
The prime years.
The prime years of Adam Sandler.
Did you know that Big Daddy, starring Adam Sandler, the Sprouse twins, Joey Lauren Adams, and Jon Stewart.
Joey Lauren Adams was in Big Daddy?
In Big Daddy. Did you know that that movie is one of Paul Thomas Anderson's all-time favorites?
Big Daddy is?
Yeah.
So a film great like him, loving a film like that. I'm not judging it. I haven't seen it, so I can't say.
I mean, it's a Sandler movie, so
Was
you
it
can,
a?
you can pretty much
How does one define a Sandler movie?
I define a Sandler. There's a few things that I use to define a Sandler movie, and I'm not one. I am a film snob, as you know, but I'm not one
As
of
am
those.
I.
I'm not one of those film snobs like "Ugh, Adam Sandler." I actually think Adam Sandler is very underappreciated in critical circles, and I like a lot of his stuff, like Billy Madison, Happy Gilmore, The Wedding Singer. I
Eight Crazy
like Big
Nights.
Daddy. Eight Crazy Nights, a classic.
Eight Crazy Nights is
Classic of animation on
a terrible, great movie.
a classic of 25 Days of Christmas on ABC.
Literally.
Um,
The only Hanukkah movie, really, if you think about it.
yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
I'm still waiting for him to make a Thanksgiving movie with the Thanksgiving song. I guess Jack and Jill is technically a Thanksgiving movie, but nobody counts that.
Can you tell me that story about the kid that used to?
So, I was in a relationship at one point with a lady,
An
and her-
individual.
an individual,
A dame.
a dame, and her brother was a very very nice young man. He was mentally handicapped. His favorite movie was Jack and Jill
The scariest
of all time.
The scariest
Like
part
he
about
watched
that.
it on repeat. He watched it all 24 hours of the day. He would sit and watch Jack and Jill.
That reminded me a lot of that story of that kid who like became a vegetable, and he was basically like paralyzed and he couldn't speak,
Yeah.
and he was in front of the TV and his parents didn't know, but he was mentally competent, but he couldn't communicate at all.
That's interesting.
And his parents would play Barney on repeat for years on end. So for years he was traumatized by having to listen to Barney all day. So it kind of reminded me of that, like the thought of listening to Jack and Jill.
Speaking of mute people, here's your fun fact for the day. Did you know Albert Einstein did not speak until he was 6 years old?
Really?
His parents took him to doctors. Nobody could figure out what was going on. They thought he was like mentally retarded. And one night they were having dinner, and he was like 6, and he said the soup is too cold. And his parents were like super shocked. They were like, "What's? Hey, you could talk? When did this happen? Why weren't you talking before?" And he said, "Yeah, I could always talk." And they said, "Well, why didn't you say anything before?" He said, "Well, up until now, everything's been fine."
I feel like that's an urban legend, and I don't believe that.
I
want to believe it.
I want to believe it because it's Einstein. It sounds like an Einstein thing.
It just doesn't sound like it would be real. It just sounds like an urban legend.
Mm.
But I guess like famous people like that, you'll hear that all the time.
Yeah, there's a lot of great urban legends out there.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. The Mothman,
The Mothman, Bigfoot,
Bigfoot, the Jersey Devil.
the Manster, half man, half hamster.
Is that a real thing?
There was a movie called The Manster. It was like
Oh,
a B
God.
movie.
So back to Adam Sandler. So I define an Adam Sandler movie as it has a few different things. It stars Adam Sandler, an attractive woman, and Adam Sandler's posse. That's the number one thing.
Rob Schneider.
David Spade,
David
Kevin James,
Yep.
Chris. Some combination of these.
Okay.
Along with him and an attractive lady, whether it be Jennifer Aniston, Salma Hayek, Kate Beckinsale, Joey Lauren Adams,
Usually
Reese Witherspoon.
in a very bad comedy.
And it's that's number one. It is written by him, at least in part, and it is directed by not a real filmmaker,
What do you define as not a real filmmaker?
as in Joe Schmo off the street who directs for a paycheck, as in not like Punch Drunk Love is not an, even though it stars Adam Sandler and it's tailored to a lot of Adam Sandler's strengths.
It's not an
It's
Adam
not a
Sandler movie.
Sandler movie
Yeah.
because it's made by Paul Thomas Anderson, who is a real filmmaker.
I feel like a lot of directors get lucky because he is a good actor.
He is a very good actor, and that's why I feel like he's underappreciated in critical circles because he has a lot of dramatic range. You can see it in this movie, Uncut Gems. You can see it in Punch Drunk Love. You can see it in stuff like Spanglish. And you can even see it in his comedies. And I think like people have a tendency to write off comedy, especially dumb comedy, like what he does, and they're like, well, anybody can do that. The thing is, not anybody can do that. And the proof that not anybody can do that is his friends, Rob Schneider, David Spade,
Kevin
James.
James.
They've all tried to have that Adam Sandler career. And none of them can do it like he can.
It seems like they're all like, I don't know about Kevin James, but they're mostly just SNL dropouts.
Yeah.
And then they just end up having like really terrible post SNL careers.
Mm-hmm.
Like Adam Sandler on SNL very long?
I don't believe so. I think he was only on like 1 or 2 seasons.
Mm-hmm.
All of his character, he was all of his characters were like something man or something boy. You know what I mean? It was like Crazy Boy or Biscuit Man or things like that.
I feel like that's unfortunately what he makes the most of his money out of is the man-child movies.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, occasionally he'll hit a good one like Click or something like that.
Oh, you like Click?
I thought Click was a good movie.
You enjoy Click?
I enjoy that. It's a not a great movie.
I've never seen Click, so I can't comment.
I saw Click in the theater when I was
yeah?
like 8. Probably not the movie you want to see with your kids, but Christopher Walken made a great appearance in that movie.
Hi, it's Christopher Walken.
What I go to the Bed Bath and the Beyond? What about the Beyond section? That's basically the whole plot of the movie is that he goes to Bed Bath and Beyond and then goes to the Beyond section and there's Christopher Walken.
And he teaches him how to rewind time.
Basically.
That's a very Adam Sandler plot.
Yeah, it's not the greatest.
Oh, it's also the other thing that defines an Adam Sandler movie is that it was made for over $50 million and nobody who watches it is sure where the money went. Because they're always, all of his movies are set in like 3 or 4 different places with like his friends as the cast and like are not made with super high end production value. They're not shot with like picture perfect cameras. They're not color graded to like the absolute best detail. They're just like, you know, they're generic studio made movies. So where did the $50 million go? Which has led me to believe what Red Letter Media believes, that it's all an embezzlement scam, and that the fact that he has an audience that will go to see him, he just uses that to get him and his friends money.
I have a theory. Is it that Adam Sandler makes bad movies, or that the corporations force him to make bad, or ask him to make bad movies and he offers to?
I think it's a self-fulfilling prophecy that he realized at a certain point that even if he doesn't care and doesn't put much of an effort into his movies, that people will still see them anyway.
He's going to get the small percentage of people that actually do like his movies. And then they get some sort of entertainment out of it.
But I don't think it's a small percentage, though. I mean, they always make money.
Yeah, I mean, if they made a Grown Ups 3 right now, it'd make, millions of dollars.
Yeah. I saw Grown Ups 2 at the theater. It was on one of my dates with an ex-girlfriend. We went to Grown Ups 2. It was a packed theater.
People love that.
The very next week, I saw... what did I see the very next week after that? It was 2013. I think it was Inside Llewyn Davis.
That's quite the...
Critically acclaimed...
Coen Brothers vehicle.
Critically acclaimed Coen Brothers Oscar Isaac vehicle. I was like one of like 4 people in there.
Yeah, I hate when you go to a movie that you know is going to be good and there's only like one person in the theater.
That happened to me with Suspiria, the remake. I was the only one there.
I went to the...
Which was probably good, because that was a really fucked up film, and I don't know if I would want to watch that with someone directly next to me.
Yeah.
But...
I remember seeing a True Story with Jonah Hill and James Franco. It was about a guy who impersonated a New York Times reporter.
Speaking of impersonating people, this is actually the perfect segue into our main topic, which is about strange athletes from throughout time.
Yes, we're going from movies straight to athletes. It's a real...
But this is the perfect
1080.
segue, because one of my athlete choices notoriously passed himself off as someone he was not, and that's what he's known for. So this man is nobody knows who he is. Let me preface the story by saying that this man is still not found to this day.
So
He's been called the DB Cooper of NASCAR.
So he was a NASCAR driver.
His name, quote, I'm using air quotes of that. His name is L.W. Wright.
L.W. Wright, okay.
So L.W. Wright was a NASCAR driver. So in 1982, mind you, this is 1982 that this is happening. Because let me give people a little bit of a backstory to the history of NASCAR. So, which I actually do know a little bit about. So
I can't say I know any.
So here's
it's a history lesson for
the day. So NASCAR was invented as a way for bootleggers to see who had the fastest car. Because back in the Prohibition era,
yeah, that makes sense.
You would make the alcohol and you would have to soup up your car so it could outrun the cops. So when Prohibition ended, they have these souped up cars and nothing to do with them. So they were like, hey, well, let's race them. Let's see who's the fastest. So NASCAR, the idea of stock car racing was born out of that. And in the early days, before about, I want to say 1975 is when the
modern
NASCAR
day
league was
the modern day NASCAR.
Before that, it was just basically the wild, wild west. People would show up like 50 at a time or 20 at a time. It was a completely random amount. It's like anybody who ever runs 5K races, like in their local area. It was basically that, but with cars. So people would just go around the southeast, like signing up for races. And sometimes there would be giant crowds. Sometimes there wouldn't be. Sometimes there would be paved tracks. Sometimes there wouldn't be. Sometimes you would actually get a check that did not bounce, and sometimes you would get a bouncing check and never be able to find the track promoter again. But in the 70s, they said, no more of this. We're going to figure this out. We're going to make a real sports league, basically, and we're going to sanction everything. So now you need to get a license to drive a NASCAR car. You need to get background checked. You need to get references. You need to get sponsorship. You need to put a real team together. It can't be a dog and pony show operation. But this all happened in the 70s. This was crystallized.
In relative recent history.
In 1982, a man named L.W. Wright walked into the NASCAR offices to get a NASCAR license. He said, I've been driving cars for almost 10 years. They said, okay. He had references that checked out. He had a sponsor. He was going to be sponsored by a country music superstar called T.G. Shepherd. He had his sponsorship that checked out. He had a car that he'd bought from another team owner. So they said, okay, fine. We're going to give you the license. He got the license. He entered in the race. Now, this is supposedly a 10-year veteran of the sport with sponsorship. But curiously, none of the other drivers could ever remember racing against an L.W. Wright at any point in history. There was no record of him in another race. Nobody could remember him on any of the short tracks or local tracks in the Southeast. Nobody knew who he was. And when the Nashville newspaper asked T.G. Shepherd how it felt to be sponsoring a race, this was the first T.G. Shepherd had heard about it.
So, did he make it up?
Everything was made up. He didn't have real references. No, he had never raced before. As he was getting his team together, real drivers from the time like Sterling Marlin reported that he was asking questions that anybody who had been driving as long as he claimed to have should have easily known. Things like, how do I take this corner in a certain way? What does this part do? Things like that.
What I want to know is, Did the guy, when he went to sign up, did he just say, "Oh, I'm endorsed by this person"?
He said, "I'm endorsed by this person,"
and then the person behind the counter didn't think, "Oh, we should probably check that."
I guess not.
Big
or I
country
guess,
music star.
I don't know. I guess he had somehow had he had references. Maybe he somehow had documentation to back this up.
But references from whom?
That's the quest. That's the ultimate question. They've never revealed. But in any event,
Tell me more.
In any event, he submitted his check. The check did not bounce, so that was another reason that they were like, fine, we'll let him race. So he entered the race. He ended up finishing like second to last place or something because his engine conked out. Following the race, once it was over, he disappeared and left the car at the speedway. The checks he gave finally did bounce for paying for the car and all that. The licensing check he gave did not bounce, but the check he gave to pay for his car bounced. The check he gave to pay for all of his supposed sponsorship arrangements bounced. People in total lost about $30,000 to this guy.
Just on the car?
Yep.
Or
just on the car and on parts and stuff like that.
Okay.
And NASCAR arranged for arrest warrants, and J.D. Terrell, who sold him the car, or no, Bernie Terrell, I'm sorry. So NASCAR arranged for arrest warrants, so a warrant was issued, and Bernie Terrell hired a private investigator to look for him. He was never found. This guy, L.W. Wright, straight up lied and sweet talked his way into a nationally televised NASCAR race.
Is there any video of this?
I think there is video of him like racing. If you look somewhere, if you look up 1982 Nashville 400 or whatever it was.
So he definitely existed. But if his name was actually T.W. Wright...
His name was not L.W. Wright.
His name was not L.W. Wright because they would have found him by now.
Yeah, this was a real person. Who straight up talked his way into a race, lied his way into a race, and then absconded with the money.
All right, so this guy, let's assume he's from, I don't know, where was this located at the time?
This all happened in Nashville.
Okay, so this guy from Nashville is drunk with his buddies one night, and he's like, hey, I can sign up for a NASCAR race. And his buddies are like, we dare you to. We'll buy you a keg of beer if you do that. So he's like, oh,
I'm going to go in, I'm going to get sponsored by TJ Shepard, and I'm going to run the race. I'm going to win the damn thing.
My grandpappy's been dead for 10 years. I got some of his checks left. So he writes himself a check from his old grandpappy.
Yep.
Takes it to the place.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't bounce because obviously, there's a little bit of money in there.
A little bit of money.
So he goes and then he lies, gets all these references for these people.
Mm-hmm.
So let's say
probably his drunk buddies.
His drunk buddies were the references.
His friend just said he was Richard Petty. That must have been what happened.
So anyway, he gets the three references, and then he just randomly puts that he got endorsed by this one guy, somehow or another, because nobody checked it.
Yeah.
So that's the weirdest part is
nobody checked it at any point.
If he was famous at the time, like why would they think, oh, we should probably check on that? Maybe he was the first person that would say, I'm endorsed by country music star.
Yeah. TJ Shepard.
TJ Shepard.
I don't know.
Whatever.
But it would be like
it's a very southern sounding name.
But can you imagine can you imagine if I went to NASCAR offices today and was like, hey, I've been driving race cars for 10 years. I'm sponsored by Luke Bryan and I'm going to enter the Daytona 500. And they were just like, okay, sure. Can you imagine if that happened?
I want to imagine this could happen in like any other sport, quote unquote.
I don't think it could. How could it? Because you would need to have some kind of film on tape of you playing the sport to even get a contract, wouldn't you?
I think this is a good segue into the Eddie Goodell story.
Okay.
Okay, so Eddie Goodell was a short person.
Yeah.
and
A
he
little man.
a little man,
Yes.
and he's famous for playing one at bat in the majors.
Mm-hmm.
He wore like number like .99 something. I'll have to look it up, but he wore like a really weird number,
Like a fraction.
like 55.5 or something like that.
How patronizing.
And the story behind it is that the White Sox own, I believe it was at the time it was the St. Louis Browns.
Okay.
I think his name Bill Veeck. He later owned the White Sox.
Okay.
Famous for the Disco Sucks night.
Okay.
And the 5-cent beer.
Yep.
Night
And
or
almost
whatever.
moving to Tampa Bay in the 80s.
Basically.
Yeah.
So anyway, back in the day when he owned the Browns, the St. Louis Browns, not the Cleveland Browns baseball team, he was a big promoter, so he liked his, promotional stunts.
Okay.
So in his infinite wisdom, he thought, let's have a circus person bat in the majors for one game. So he secretly signed this one guy to a contract somehow. Okay. I don't know how that happens. I don't know.
He secretly signed him.
Yes, he secretly signed him. I don't know. That obviously wouldn't work today because any player that's signed is obviously would have to go through some sort of check.
Yeah, like a physical exam or like the general manager would have to approve of the contract or all of that.
So anyway, he ended up signing this little midget guy, short person, and he randomly came up as a pinch hitter one day. Mm-hmm. And walked, because obviously this strike zone was very small. Okay. And he got the first, was taken out of the game, waved to the fans, and was never seen again.
Interesting. But never seen again. Like,
he basically went back to being a circus person. I think he died an alcoholic.
Oh, how sad.
Because I believe he was ridiculed for the rest of his life for that one little thing. I would have to do a little more research on this. I'm just going off of memory, but I just thought that was a weird little scenario, like players who play like one game.
When you said he was never heard from again, I was like, wait, did the owner kill him?
I think
what happened?
I mean, obviously it was a joke.
Right.
People are not really going to know who this guy is, so
So, another baseball story is related to Koo Dai Sung or Dai Sung Koo, depending on how you would like to, whether you would like to use the Korean order of names or the American order of names.
I remember him playing for the Mets.
He did play for the Mets. He played for the Mets in 2005. It was his only professional season.
I think I remember this story.
Yeah. If you're interested, John Boyce of SB Nation has an amazing mini documentary on YouTube about this guy. He has a ton of great videos, actually. So a series called Pretty Good, a series called Chart Party, all of these interesting.
The Bob Emergency, of course.
The Bob Emergency, of course.
The greatest film of 2019, according to Nick Paradies.
Yeah, up there. With Uncut Gems. So Koo Dai Sung was a 35-year-old relief pitcher who was brought over from the Japanese league. So he had played 4 seasons prior to coming to the Mets. He had played 4 seasons in the Japanese baseball league, and before that he had played 10 seasons in the Korean league. During this time, he had never swung a bat. Not a single time. Even in high school, he was not really swinging the bat that much. So he barely swung the bat ever in his life. He's never swung the bat in a professional setting. So Willie Randolph decides that the game is the Mets are up 9-1 over the Reds. So he's gonna save the bullpen and send Koo out there to bat for himself. So Koo goes out there. He stands in the most unathletic stance possible. And it goes down. Ball 1, strike 1 looking, strike 2 looking, strike 3 looking. He's done. His first professional at bat.
He doesn't even pick the bat off his shoulder.
Doesn't even take the bat off his shoulder. It stays there completely.
Okay.
The next day, the New York Times calls it a farce. The New York Post says he looked completely uncomfortable out there. Phil Mushnick, legendary New York columnist, says, it was the worst professional at bat I've ever seen.
Why specifically this one at bat? Just because he didn't swing?
He didn't swing. He looked like a sycophant out there. It was clear he had no idea what he was doing. So you'd think that you'd think Willie Randolph is never going to send this guy out to bat ever again. But 5 days later, he does against Randy Johnson. So they're playing the Diamondbacks, I believe. I don't remember. What
05, he would have played for the Yankees.
Yes, they're playing the Yankees. It's a Subway Series.
Yes.
That's right. So they're playing the Yankees. Randy Johnson is pitching.
Okay.
5-time Cy Young Award winner Randy Johnson.
Throws
tallest man in Major League history.
100
Randy
miles an
Johnson.
hour. Killed a bird in spring training.
Yes.
You know, dog of a man.
Dog of a man, Randy Johnson. Joe Buck and Tim McCarver are doing the commentary. Tim McCarver, as we all know, is wrong quite a bit. And on this prediction that he's going to make today, he's so wrong that, as John Boyce says, he's so wrong that he was proven wrong before he had even finished saying his prediction. Because on the telecast, you can hear, he says, I'm going to go out ahead and say that this is the biggest gimme at bat so far. This, bam, crack of the bat. Kudai Sung hits a double off Randy Johnson to dead center field at Shea Stadium. Gets to second base, puts on a starter jacket.
As they did. Was this in the middle of the summer, or was this like
This
late?
is in the middle of the summer.
I never
It's
understood.
70 degrees.
I never understood why they did that in the summertime.
It's 70 degrees and he's got a starter jacket on. This is like base running pitcher on like ultimate level.
Okay.
So the next batter is Jose Reyes. Jose Reyes lays down a bunt. Beautiful bunt. Randy Johnson fields it. Throws it to first base as Koo heads to third. Now somebody is supposed to be covering home plate when all this is happening. Standard bunt procedure. But for some reason on this fine day, nobody is. So Koo goes around third base and decides that he's going to go home. And he does so. This guy who has never swung a bat or run the bases ever in his life, in his second professional at bat, is going to dog Randy Johnson and then score from second on a bunt. Now, there's an urban legend that because he had a baseball in his pocket that he didn't know was there in the starter jacket pocket. There's an urban legend that when he slid into home, he went on the baseball, and this somehow contributed to the shoulder injury that ended his Mets career. Nobody knows that this is true. But the legend of Kudai Sung dogging Randy Johnson and then scoring from second on a bunt is 100% true.
A couple of things about that.
Yeah.
What's the deal with the jacket thing? I understand in the wintertime they're trying to protect their arm, which is dumb, but...
Yeah. I don't know why he was wearing it in the summer.
Why would players wear it in the summer? Because you still... like it seems like an older thing now, but I just never understood that.
My favorite Kudai Song anecdote, even better than this, actually, is that he loved to play poker. He loved to play poker with his teammates. He claimed that he had never played before, but according to the rest of the Mets clubhouse, he would just wash them every time. And he would do it with absolute shit in his hands. Absolute trash cards. He just had a brilliant poker face, and he would just stand there and up the stakes and keep winning pots with absolute trash in his hand every time.
This man's a mystery.
What a legend.
He just disappear after that?
He never had another at bat. And he went back.
He has a 500 career average.
Yeah.
1 RBI.
Yeah.
Sounds like a career to me.
Yeah.
Are there any other significant players who only had like 1 at bat that you can think of? I know
Not
there's
off the top of my head.
Adam Greenberg is the only one that I can think of. The guy that got hit in his first at bat and then
came up for one more.
Yeah, against R.A. Dickey.
Yeah.
That 1 year. And then Ozzie Guillen promised to put him on the team after that and then never.
Yeah.
We all know what happened to Ozzie Guillen that year. So
yeah.
I don't think he was too concerned about bringing back some 35-year-old player.
Yeah, I can't think of another one. I can think of people who started really late and only got a few. Like I was in the stands at Citi Field for Valentino Pascucci's only career home run.
Who?
He only had like 5 at bats in his life. He was like this 35-year-old rookie
Oh.
that came up for the Mets for like a September call up, and I was there when he hit his only career home run 3 rows in front of me.
Mm-hmm. When years ago, I read Pete Rose's book, his first book he wrote after admitting to betting on baseball and all that.
Yeah.
And there was an interesting part where he was talking about how he was going to meet with, at the end of the book, he was talking about how he was going to meet with the commissioner, Bud Selig, at the time.
Yeah.
And he was going to, meet with him and then try to get, some attention put on. He was good friends with Mike Schmidt, if I'm remembering the story correct. And he was like, Mike Schmidt was helping rally to get him in the Hall of Fame or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And he was also like recommending, like, oh, you should help my son Pete Rose Jr. get into the big leagues again. Granted, Pete Rose Jr. only had like 5 career at bats.
Yeah.
And had never done anything significant in his life. And I always just wondered, like, where do some of these like washed up sons of, or even fathers of players end up where they are?
It's an interesting question. Is that the whole Pete Rose Jr. saga? That he just got back in the league and didn't do anything?
He was like, I think he was like a 15 or 20 year minor leaguer. The Reds brought him up like 1 year in 1997.
There's a few of them, like Trey Griffey, who became a football player instead of a baseball player, but his career amounted to nothing.
Yeah.
He played on a couple of practice squads, never had a catch, I don't believe. He actually did get a minor league baseball contract at one point, because I guess they were just like...
That's nepotism at that point.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's questionable when it begs another question, like, why would they waste a spot for somebody they're not even... I mean, I don't know how he was professionally, but like even like someone like Tim Tebow now, like, why would you bother wasting a roster spot for somebody that's just a novelty? I mean, I get the monetary value of it. You're going to get people to come to the game to see Tim Tebow.
Right.
But I guess, like, are you going to get value from seeing Ken Griffey Jr.'s son?
Not really.
Even though...
You're going to get value from seeing Ken Griffey Jr.
Yeah.
You don't care about the son. Like, I can think of, like... why am I blanking on what I was trying to say?
What about some players that were, like, really highly touted and then did absolutely nothing? Like, you could say, like, maybe, like, the Brian Taylors of the world, like the...
Yeah, Brian Taylor's a good one.
Or, what was that, Matt Bush? The guy, the guys that were
Henry
drafted
Mejia.
first. Yep, Henry Mejia, there you go.
And he sabotaged his own career with, being told multiple times to stop doing PEDs and doing them anyway.
I still wonder why the Mets signed him twice in a row after he got caught with PEDs.
I don't know. Rusney Castillo.
Who?
Remember Rusney Castillo?
No,
he was
I don't.
Signed to a 7-year contract out of Cuba by my Red Sox. And
is that guaranteed?
Guaranteed money. He did absolutely nothing in the big leagues. Was cut after like 1 season and went to AAA.
While he's still making guaranteed money.
Yeah.
Like, how does that
I
work?
love the Red Sox.
I'm sure you do. Well, we know you're a big Red Sox fan here.
Well, who is the most touted prospect you can remember that didn't work out in any sport?
Oh, probably Mark Appel.
Mark Appel is a good one.
I think he's the most recent one to never play in the big leagues after getting drafted.
Who was the
one
from a few years ago that refused to sign? Brady
Aiken?
Brady Aiken, yeah. What's he doing now? He's in the Indian system, I know.
I remember him. I don't even remember him in any of the recent top 100s or anything.
Yeah, so. I don't know. Slade Heathcott was a big one. I remember him.
Who's Slade Heathcott?
Slade Heathcott was like a top 10 pick or something for the Yankees. And I remember him because the story at the time was that he had been homeless as a senior in high school. He was living out of his truck. And like baseball was going to be his saving grace. And he had he was a big pick of the Yankees. And he was constantly, like every year, projected like, this is the year Slade Heathcott is going to break out. He's going to be a big thing. And it just never happened. He ended up making it to the big leagues, I think, at one point and having like a couple at bats. But that was pretty much it. He didn't do anything of note. even in the minor leagues. There's another one I remember, Bubba Starling. Do you remember Bubba
Yes, I
Starling?
remember Bubba Starling.
Yeah,
I remember the name.
Bubba Starling was like he was a two-sport prodigy. Like in high school, like he had a full scholarship to multiple colleges, to like Nebraska, Oklahoma, University of Texas, all these places to play quarterback. And he was like every team wanted him as their big baseball draft pick. And the Royals ended up getting him, I think, like 3rd overall. And it's been like 7 years and he's still not in the big leagues. So
You know what?
that's a big one.
Speaking of the Royals, remember Gil Mesh?
Yes.
He was on the DL for like 5 years, but he always like it was always like he always came to the field and always did everything, but he was always injured.
Yeah.
And then he eventually told them to forego his contract just because he didn't want the team to pay so much money for him.
Mm-hmm. The anti Bobby Bonilla, if you will.
Basically.
Remember Bobby Parnell?
Yes, I do.
He was another one.
He was a solid reliever,
but he was touted to be so much.
Yeah.
Trying to think of other the Mets have so many.
I just lost it. I had somebody. Shit. It was somebody. Oh, Mark Pryor for the Cubs. There you go.
I'm not familiar with him.
So Mark Pryor was a very, very highly touted pitcher. He played for the Cubs. He was famous for he was the one that was pitching during the Steve Bartman game.
Okay.
I mean, he was a very big, pitcher at the time for the Cubs. I think he played for like 5 seasons and then he got injured and he never played again. He only played for like 5 years. But he was part of that like Kerry Wood kind of era of the Cubs.
Right.
Where they were sort of decent. But
Kerry Wood, 21 strikeouts in a game.
And then literally falls off the face of the earth.
Yep. I remember him.
Mm-hmm.
One of the few people to be both a closer and a starter.
Yeah.
Justin Dusher was another. Remember
John Smoltz?
John Smoltz, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Remember when Phil Hughes was an 18-game winner the year after being a relief pitcher of the World Series win team?
Mm-hmm. Is that when he played for the White Sox?
That was when he played for the Yankees.
Who am I thinking of? Oh, I'm thinking of Philip Humber.
Philip Humber, the no-hitter man.
Yeah, perfect game.
Perfect game, Philip Humber.
There's some weird guys who just do strange things like that. Like Fernando Tatis is only known for hitting 2 grand slams, and that's about it.
Yeah. Major League Baseball perfect games. Let's see. So let's look at the list of everybody who's thrown a perfect game.
Can I guess who the last 5 were?
Sure.
Felix Hernandez, Dallas Braden, Philip Humber.
Okay. You have 3 of the 5.
What year was the one before that?
There's one in between Hernandez and Humber, and there's one in between.
Oh, there was that one year there was a bunch of them thrown.
Yeah.
I mean, Armando Galarraga, of course.
That doesn't count, unfortunately.
Yes, it does.
It should, but it doesn't. But he's another one. What else did he do other than that?
This is true. Did Roy Halladay throw a perfect game?
Yeah, Roy Halladay is one of them.
Okay. And
you got the 3 from 2010. Now you need the 1 more from 2012 because there was 2 in 2012.
Dallas Braden
no, the 2010 was Dallas Braden, Roy Halladay.
2012 would have been
Dallas Braden, Roy Halladay. Oh no, there was 3 in 2012. I'm sorry. 10. I'm thinking the 2010 was Dallas Braden, Roy Halladay, Armando Galarraga.
Technically speaking,
yeah. Remember Pedro Martinez's 10-inning perfect game that was ruined in the 11th?
Yes.
Yeah.
And then there was 1 inning. No, it got ruined because he hit a guy with a pitch.
Yeah.
And then he charged him out. And then he didn't get ejected because obviously he was throwing a no-hitter. So
yep.
Baseball needs extra money.
Yep.
They need those ratings.
So there's in 2012, there was Philip Humber, Blank, and Felix Hernandez.
Who?
Philip Humber, Blank,
one more.
And Felix Hernandez.
In 2012?
Yes.
I feel like asking what team would be a giveaway.
It would be a giveaway.
Was he in the American League?
National League.
National League.
I don't
know who is it.
Matt Cain.
Oh, he threw a perfect game?
Yep. Big
Really?
Sugar.
Really?
Big Horse.
The guy who ruined David Wright's career.
Big Daddy, the Horse, and Big Sugar are all his nicknames. Yeah.
He
Matt
basically
Cain.
ruined David Wright's career when he hit him that one time, and then he was just never the same.
Yeah.
The guy who had never been injured in his whole career. That kind of sucks when...
I'm surprised there hasn't been one since 2012.
Yeah, it's been a long drought.
Very long drought. Let's see if there's been any droughts like this. But I'm sure there has been because there's only like 21 in all of history.
Yeah.
But Felix Hernandez, Matt Cain, Philip Humber, Roy Halladay, Dallas Braden. So Felix Hernandez, superstar. Matt Cain, great pitcher. Philip Humber, nobody.
Dallas Braden.
Dallas Braden, nobody. Roy Halladay, star. Mark Burley, a star. Randy Johnson, a star. David Cohn, a star. David Wells, a star. Kenny Rogers.
Kenny Rogers threw a perfect game?
Not the country singer Kenny Rogers, the baseball player Kenny Rogers.
Was he one of the worst contracts ever?
Gotta be.
Yeah.
Dennis Martinez.
The only Mexican pitcher to throw a perfect game.
Is that so interesting?
I believe so.
Tom Browning. I don't know who that is. Mike Witt. Len Barker. Now we're getting to people I don't know.
Yeah.
Catfish Hunter, I know.
Yeah.
Sandy Koufax.
Did he throw more than one?
Sandy Koufax?
I don't think anybody's thrown more than one perfect game.
I don't think so.
No.
Don Larson, of course. The
Yeah, of
World
course.
Series perfect game. Charlie Robertson, Addie Joss, Cy Young. That's it. Roy Halladay threw 2 no-hitters in one season, as did Felix Hernandez, I believe.
Do you remember the first person to throw a perfect game?
Cy Young.
No.
Oh, and before the modern era.
John Montgomery Ward for the Worcester Ruby Legs.
Montgomery Ward.
That's the random piece of baseball trivia for the day.
For the Worcester Ruby Legs.
Yes, if I recall. Yeah, but that's back when baseball didn't really count.
Lee Richmond threw one for the Worcesters.
The Worcesters.
Yes.
That's phenomenal. Those old baseball team names were just strange.
Yeah,
the Boston
Providence Grays.
The Boston Bean Eaters.
The New York Highlanders. Remember that one? Did you know the Yankees started life as the Baltimore Orioles?
I do remember that.
All right, so moving on to my do you have any more athletes to talk about?
Well, the original one that sparked this conversation originally was the guy who only did pinch running for his whole career.
Oh yeah, Terence Gore.
Terence Gore. I really want to get that baseball card. That's a cool one.
Terence Gore was brought up for the World Series run for the Royals as exclusively a pinch runner.
Are we talking about a different person?
We might be. I'm talking about Terence Gore from the Royals, who has a career 0 batting average, but stole like 10 bases.
I'm forgetting his name now, but he was a guy in the A's during the 70s playoff run where they signed him. He was just
yes, it was that. It was a professional sprinter. They
hired a professional sprinter just to pinch run.
Yep.
I saw that the other day and I thought that was fascinating.
Let me see if I can pull up the name real quick.
Of course, Matt Stair is the professional pinch hitter.
Yep.
It's odd when you see weird roles like that.
Kenny Lofton was basically just a pinch runner at times. Yeah. Herbert Washington.
That's a baseball card I really want. Because you never see like pinch. I think it's the only baseball card that it says pinch runner.
Yeah. Like, could you imagine today if like the Yankees were like, "Hey, Usain Bolt, we want you to come pinch run for us in the World Series."
I don't think that should be allowed.
I think I'm perfectly fine with that being allowed. I think it's awesome.
I need to get rid of my traditionalist tendencies.
Yeah.
Because they kind of mess with it sometimes. So what were you gonna go to next?
My next one is Scott Foster, the accountant who came in as the emergency goalie for the Chicago Blackhawks.
Yes.
And had a shutout.
So if I remember correctly, the NHL teams have their backup goalie.
Yep.
And then somebody on call as their backup goalie.
Yes, they have. So they have the starting goalie, a backup goalie, and they have an emergency backup goalie who is usually someone from the minor leagues, but occasionally is someone from a local rec league or just a guy who happens to know.
And it's very, very rare that they ever use their backup.
Yeah, because normally they're fine, but in this case, Forget the name of the Blackhawks starting goalie, but he got hurt. The backup got hurt. So they brought in Scott Foster, who's an accountant from Chicago who plays in a rec league down the street from the Blackhawks practice facility, and played college hockey at Western Michigan like 12 years before this happened. So he was brought in, got a shutout against the opponent. I believe they were playing the Blues. I could be wrong about that. But got a shutout against, we'll say, the Blues. And then went back to work at his accounting job the next day like nothing ever happened.
And then never played another game again.
Nope. The backup goalie was healthy again for the next one.
That's
So,
amazing.
yeah. Hockey is a lot of bizarre, interesting things like that because I feel like it is, even though it takes world-class athleticism to skate around, it's also the most luck-based of all the sports. So it's the one where you kind of could come off of the street and just kind of do it and be somewhat successful. There's also a fun hockey anecdote where if the refs for some reason are unable to make it to a contest, they go to the stands and ask if anyone knows the rules.
Is that an official NHL rule?
Yes. And they have one person from each team serve as refs, as line judges, and then they have somebody from the stands who knows the rules serve as the crew chief.
It's such an archaic rule.
Not only is this hilarious and archaic, it actually did happen one time where the game against it was the Whalers of all teams.
Ah, yes.
The Whalers,
the illustrious whale.
The Whale, and I believe Boston. There was a snowstorm in Hartford that night, so the refs were having trouble making it to the game. And so they got a player from Boston and a player from Hartford, as well as a random fan from the audience to be refs for the first period. And then by the second period, the real refs had gotten there.
That's phenomenal.
Yeah.
So,
I guess the idea is to have one from each team and then an impartial observer. But it's sports, so there are no impartial observers.
I feel like we should do. I have an idea for a segment altogether.
Okay.
We can do from the files of TG Wright or TJ Wright, and we just talk about strange anomalies in sports.
Strange anomalies in sports. Strange rules or strange
rules, strange occurrences.
Okay.
Like not just your usual, like, oh, a guy hits this many home runs in a game, like something really bizarre like that.
Really, really out there.
Like the they were mentioning on Michael K's show the other day about these two guys who traded their wives and their kids for each other's. They were two pitchers on the Yankees, and they swapped wives and they swapped their entire lives together. The dog, the everything, the house.
Yeah.
And they just switched lives. That's it.
This reminds me of that Dave Chappelle sketch where he switches lives with the white dude. And like the white guy is living in the hood with like Dave's wife and his kid. And then Dave is living in the suburbs with like the white guy's family. So let me see. What's the funniest rule I can remember is that, or some of the strangest rules. I know one really strange one is that for some reason, if a football team forfeits a game, then the team that did not forfeit officially wins 2-0. And I don't know why 2-0 is the official score, but it is.
I guess so. If the team forfeits because they couldn't play the game, or they just forfeit because they're going to lose,
Just forfeit for any reason at all.
So like if it's like 50-0 and there's like
They forfeit,
a minute left,
it becomes 2-0.
Why?
I don't know.
That's a little strange.
So let's see. There's actually a cool series on YouTube like this called Weird Rules, but there are some that even they have not covered. So I looked up weird rules online. So baseball, we have the fair foul ball. This is something that would leave many players, coaches, and fans dumbfounded. It says, per MLB Rule 2.00, A ball hit up the middle that strikes the pitching rubber and then bounces into foul territory is a foul ball.
So if it hits the rubber,
If it hits the mound and rolls foul, it's a fair ball. But if it hits the pitching mound and then bounces all the way from there into foul territory, it's a foul ball.
so if it hits the dirt on the pitcher's mound and rolls, it's fair.
Yes.
But if it hits the rubber
and bounces out, it's foul. But if it hits a base and then ricochets into foul territory, it's still fair. It's only if it hits the pitching rubber.
I can't think of any scenario where that would happen, but okay. I guess it sort of makes sense.
Staying in the game after fouling out in basketball, that's one that they did cover on Weird Rules. That's a funny one. Mm-hmm. So basically, what do you do if you're a basketball team and you have only like 8 players, let's say, and 3 of them foul out, and then another one fouls out? Now you can't just play with 4 people against 5. So the guy stays in the game even though he's fouled out.
So you could in theory foul out a bunch of players and then just keep recycling the same player.
Yeah.
Has that ever happened before?
That has happened before.
I'm sure
it happened to the Phoenix Suns, I believe.
I feel like people would take advantage of that, though.
But what happens is that
you just run a skeleton team and then have everybody foul out, and then just have your star end up being the last person.
What happens is it becomes everything becomes a technical foul after that, so you get the 2 shots. But yeah, you can stay in the game. There's the fair catch kick in football. That if you,
that wouldn't make sense, because in theory, if you catch the ball, you can just kick it if it's still in your hands.
Well, no, the fair catch kick is that wherever you fair catch from, you have the option of running your 4 downs or kicking a field goal. Now, I don't know why you would ever do this, because I can't think of any position that you would be in
to make a 100-yard field goal.
Yes. Although this did nearly happen in the Super Bowl a few years ago because of the brilliant mind of one Bill Belichick. It was getting close to the end of the game. The Falcons and Patriots were tied. They had made the miraculous comeback to tie the game. And Julian Edelman fair caught the ball at about midfield. And Bill had the option of going for a fair catch kick or taking a knee to go into overtime, and he picked overtime, where they ultimately won. But he could have, if he wanted to, he could have ended the game right there on a fair catch kick.
Would a 50-yard field goal have been possible?
I think it would have been like a 65-yard field goal at that point. So, doable.
Definitely doable.
The interesting thing about this is that there are a couple of changes. It's not a regular field goal setup because the defense doesn't line up at scrimmage. They line about 10 yards back, and there isn't a snap. The holder just holds it. I don't know why. There seems to be no reason why this is the case.
Is it just that the rules are so old, or I wonder how new of a rule that is?
Well, I know there's a lot of stuff that's old, because this is to give you an idea of how old some of the football rule book is. The drop kick is a remnant, because the onside kick in the rule book, because we know it doesn't really get converted that often, is a remnant from the early days where it was you were equally as likely to succeed moving the ball downfield by onside kicking as you were forward passing.
I guess that makes sense.
Yeah.
To go back to the baseball one, I think maybe when fields were smaller, that there was more likely of a chance of that happening. Or maybe when the field, I guess when the pitching mound was closer.
Yeah.
At some point, maybe that made more sense, but that was just weird.
In the NBA, if you shatter a backboard, it's a technical foul.
I'm sure Shaq knows a few of those.
Yeah.
Did we ever end up talking about Uncut Gems?
No.
As a whole? Okay. We can...
I have one more. In football, the out-of-bounds kickoff rule. Now,
in football?
Yeah. Now, everybody who watches football pretty much knows that if the ball goes out of bounds on a kickoff, the team gets it at their 40-yard line. But the ball doesn't actually have to go out of bounds for this rule to be enacted. If a player is accidentally stepping out of bounds at some point, but still catches the ball inbounds, the ref can choose to call the out of bounds kick rule.
So
if you happen to accidentally step out of bounds while you're running to catch the ball.
Oh, okay, so I get it. So somehow you run into the out of bounds, but then you run back in and then catch the ball.
Yes.
It's still considered
an out of bounds kick. So
excuse me for a second.
Yeah.
Hello? Oh, F off.
That was amazing.
So I thought it was something important.
But in technical terms, this means that this could easily be taken advantage of by a smart coach. Because all you have to do is run out of bounds and then run back in and catch it. And it'll count as an out of bounds catch.
But what are the odds that that'll even happen? Because who's to say you're going to plan that if the ball goes if any direction? Like, what are the odds that's ever going to happen?
It would have to be like close to the sideline already.
Or you have to have somebody really fast just run over to the sideline real quick and then run back.
But what you could do is, like, if it's close to the sideline, you could literally go like this. Up, it's out of bounds. I don't know how that happened.
That just seems like an archaic.
Yeah.
It doesn't make any sense.
Yeah. Anyways.
Yeah.
Uncut Gems.
Uncut Gems. Yeah, I thought it was phenomenal. Should we do a spoiler review or a non-spoiler review?
Nah, non-spoilers. There's probably a lot of people that haven't seen it.
Okay, so yeah, like I said, I've never seen another Adam Sandler serious movie. I haven't seen Punch Drunk Love or anything like that. So this was like my first non-comedic Adam Sandler experience.
Gotcha.
And I thought he was great. He seemed very believable. He was very, very Jewish.
Mm-hmm.
he
very New York Jewish.
Mm-hmm, definitely.
He had a great, I love the dynamic between him and Idina Menzel.
Mm-hmm.
They had a great chemistry there.
Like, it was very believable.
Of this divorcing family, yeah. Mm-hmm. Then the scene, where his kid goes up to the room.
And then he realizes that he couldn't go in the room because his dad's cheating on his mom.
Yeah, he's like...
Why can't I go in the house? Oh, the bathroom's broke.
Yeah, and then the guy is like... The guy is like, he says he's always seeing a beautiful woman go in there.
Is that mom?
Is that mom? Yeah, damn. And it was such a great performance by Sandler because you fucking hate this guy.
Yeah, the entire movie made me feel like it was like an anxiety attack because
it really was.
The whole movie, there's nothing that makes you feel like at ease.
Yeah. And you hate this guy because he's a terrible person and a slime ball and completely disgusting.
Lies to everybody, and yet somehow he's...
But you still want him to win.
I don't know what's that implying, but...
This is how I win. So many great memes have come out of that scene. Have you seen some of them?
Yes, I have.
Yeah. I've sent you some of them, I think.
Oh, yes.
When you wake up too drunk to speak, but the hostess seats you next to the mimosa bar. This is how I win. Yeah. But all of the Kevin Garnett is great in this movie. Mike Francesa is
Mike
great
Francesa's
in this movie.
cameo was fantastic.
When he's teaching the guy how to make a fucking Italian salad.
Yeah. Is there any particular reason they chose him, or is it just...
I think it's just cause.
A New York icon?
Yeah. I mean, the Safdies are I feel like they're kind of known for their offbeat choice. I mean, they had real heroin addicts play heroin addicts. Mm-hmm. They had the guy who plays the bail bondsman in Good Time was a bail bondsman from Queens.
Mm-hmm. I guess you get a little bit of authenticity there, even if it's not ever noticed by anybody.
Yeah.
It's still kind of nice.
And I just like to speak as like, because we're both filmmakers. When I noticed that, when I realized that a few years ago, I took that to heart, and I immediately was like going back over my script, and I was like, who can I get to play these parts that actually lives this life? Like
is there anything wrong with recruiting somebody that?
No, I thought it was like a religious experience almost, because you're like, if I'm making a movie with no money anyway, why not get some extra authenticity in there, or at least strive to do that?
Just have them do exactly. That's kind of smart, because you're getting people to do already what they're doing anyway.
Yeah, it's such a brilliant decision. And yeah, there's just so much. Like, Lakeith Stanfield is great in it. One of my favorite up and coming actors.
Which one?
Damani, the friend who's getting him all these NBA contacts.
Oh, the one who was friends with
Sandler.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The one who was friends with Kevin Durant.
Kevin Garnett.
Not Kevin Garnett. Sorry.
Garnett. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, he was great.
Yeah, he did great. I like what was I gonna say?
And the girl
who played
the mistress has never acted before.
Yeah.
Like, this was her first role.
That's a hell of a role to start with.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Getting his Adam Sandler's name tattooed on her butt cheek. That was a weird turn.
That was a weird turn.
That was the moment where I was like, what? That was the only time where I was like, I wasn't taken out of the movie, but I was like, damn, bitch is crazy.
It was just so stressful the whole movie, because even when, he has the Rock, and he trades the Rock for Kevin Garnett's championship ring, but then he pawns off the ring.
Yeah.
But then he gets the Rock back, but then he's already pawned off the ring, so he has to make Garnett come back.
Yeah.
And the entire movie, he just never has anything in order. And then eventually when the auction comes, we don't want to spoil the whole movie, but...
Yeah. But I know, and...
The
ending, dude.
The ending was fantastic. The only time I felt any remote, calm was the 2 seconds before the ending. And then the ending happens.
When he finally... I'm not even.
Yeah, I'm not gonna spoil it, but something happens and you're finally relaxed for a second.
You're finally relaxed, and then it's all gone in a split second.
Yeah. So I think they did the same thing with Good Time. I mean, it's been out long enough. Like when he jumps out the window at the end, no, he falls at the end, right?
Buddy Duress falls out the window, and that's the moment when you're like, oh shit. Well, it's like because Robert Pattinson gets out of the hotel and he thinks he's gotten away.
Yeah. And
then the cops are there, and Ray, I think Ray is the character's name, and then Ray falls out the window.
I think that's just a perfect lesson in how to structure a suspense movie.
Yeah.
Is you're building up the entire movie, and then everything just collapses, and then you think you have a resolved ending, and then it just completely dissolves.
Now, here's an interesting fact for you. Jonah Hill was originally supposed to play this part. They had approached Sandler to do it years before, and then he was like, I don't know if I can. So they got Jonah Hill as their second option. Jonah Hill was ready to go. And for whatever reason, he dropped out, and Sandler came back on.
I feel like if he was in this, he would have just ended up like a copy of what he played in Wolf of Wall Street.
I kind of
sort
agree.
Of that Donnie Azoff kind of,
I
character.
agree. I think he still would have been good, but I mean, Sandler was just otherworldly.
Sandler's just kind of authentic because he's a little bit older, and he kind of just has that, I'm Jewish vibe, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, no, it makes total sense. But also, and he's a New York Jew, so he lived that life.
Mm-hmm.
But on top of all that, you talk about Punch Drunk Love, because Punch Drunk Love is a movie that's not an Adam Sandler movie, but it really plays to his strengths, because Barry Egan in Punch Drunk Love is it's a Sandler character, but it's also like a deconstruction of Sandler characters, of the man-child persona, where it's like, if this guy existed in real life, people would fucking hate him. And in its own way, I think Uncut Gems, Howard Ratner is also a deconstruction of Sandler's man-child characters, because there's another one where if this guy existed in the real world, people would hate him, and people hate him in this movie.
There's
And-
literally the only person in the movie who has any appreciation for him is his mistress.
Yeah, who is another person that everyone hates.
He literally pisses off every single person in this movie. There's
Yeah.
not a single person even at the end who even supports him,
Yeah.
really.
And but it plays to his strengths. It's he's very quick and off the cuff with
Mhm.
people, which is something that Sandler characters are always good at. That persona of like, yeah, it's a little bit weaselly.
Mhm.
Like there's a little bit of that, and you think like Happy Gilmore or some of these oddball characters that he does. The Paul Crew from Longest Yard, like it was the perfect part for him to be in one of the. It was tailor made for his strengths, I think. So
What's his face?
just great job. I can't wait to see what they do next.
Billy Madison grew up and became Howard Ratner. That's my theory. Because where'd he get all that money?
Yeah,
That's a theory.
yeah. Mr. Deeds became Howard Ratner.
There you go.
Yeah, and there's a bunch of Sandler freak out moments. Like that's another thing that Sandler always does in his movie. He's always got the freak out scene where he just goes ballistic. And there's moments like that in Uncut Gems.
Yeah.
It's awesome. It really is.
When he freaks out in the office after he loses all, or after something happens and he's in his office, and he tells everybody to go home, and he's just like,
when he freaks out in the car after they get him at his kids' play.
yes.
I don't know what's going on. Like this is a regular Sandler scene,
And you kind of like feel bad for him, but at the same time, he deserves it because you know what he's done.
Exactly.
He's a terrible father. He's a terrible businessman.
It's so good. It's so good. How did it not get Oscar nominations?
That's just as perfect of a movie as you can get. That was church as far as I'm concerned.
Mm-hmm.
That movie was church.
So it's one of two big award season contenders that Jonah Hill missed out on.
What was the other one?
He was also set to play Richard Jewell in Richard Jewell, and that didn't happen.
I feel like that would have been too mainstream for that story. I feel like you need somebody simpler, like the actor that played him, to kind of give that vibe that this guy was a normal person.
Well, you want to talk about mainstream? I mean, when he was attached to be Richard Jewell, do you know who was attached to be the Sam Rockwell character?
Who?
Leonardo DiCaprio.
That would have been kind of ridiculous.
Yeah,
because then it's not.
I tend to agree.
It's not a movie about Richard Jewell anymore. It's a biopic starring Leo DiCaprio and Jonah Hill.
Yeah, and
getting Oscar fodder.
And at that time, it was also not going to be directed by Eastwood. It was going to be directed by Ezra Edelman, who, if you don't know who he is, he made O.J. Made in America.
The documentary or the...
Yes.
Oh, okay.
So it would have been his first narrative feature, but it ended up Clint Eastwood took over. Leo and Jonah Hill dropped out, but still produced it. And from all accounts, it ended up being pretty good. I haven't seen it, but I suspect it was Clint Eastwood's idea to bring in Sam Rockwell and the Black Klansman dude.
John David Washington.
No, the Richard Jewell that actor was in.
Gotcha. Okay.
In Black Klansman as the fat Klansman guy.
I'm dumb. Why would it be a black? that's a dumb thought of me.
But yeah, I mean, I suspect that was Clint Eastwood's doing, because Clint Eastwood has always preferred lesser known actors in his projects, or not lesser known so much in the main roles, but definitely in the side ones. You know, he's done a lot of stuff with that.
I got to wrap it up for today because I have to actually go somewhere. But
Gotcha.
But this was a good first episode. We got some good subjects.
I agree. Why don't we finish it off with what we're listening to and what we're watching at the moment?
I've been trying to listen to not Rev Rad, Father of All.
Father of All.
I've been trying to like it, but I can't. I
have such weird mixed emotions toward that record but when I listen to it all together, it just kind of makes sense. Like all the songs and all the experimentation kind of blends together. I'm like, it's fine. It's okay. When I listen to any song individually, I'm just like, I'm not really getting into this.
Yeah.
Unless it's Meet Me on the Roof. I think Meet Me on the Roof is pretty good.
Father of All is the only one I kind of would listen to more than once, but
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's not as bad as the Onu do Astray was different because you had more choices.
Yeah.
But
the interesting thing about these records, I feel like, is the amount of experimentation on them. I mean, they're doing things, even if even if the results were not ultimately successful, they're doing things that they've never tried before. I respect the ambition.
mm-hmm.
So like he's never done this kind of falsetto before. Some of the musical stylings using sampled beats, using drum machines. I'm pretty sure there's a drum machine on Junkies on a High. I'm pretty sure that's not actually Trey Cool playing.
I mean, I guess they're trying. They're trying to experiment, and that's okay. If they want to do that, like they've already made their mark, they don't really need to prove anything anymore.
And I disagree with people who say that there's nothing interesting going on lyrically, because that's something I've heard like in reviews and such, is that like the lyrics are bland. There actually is a bit going on if you dig deep, especially in like songs like, what's the last one? Graffiti or something? Graffitia? But that song is talking about like the current state of the union and like the way things are in like different parts of the country, and it's like there is hints of the old Green Day in there.
I just feel like I don't remember any of the names of the songs anymore. Like if you listen to anything 21st Century and before, you can pretty much remember every song on the album.
Well, those albums are
because
leagues above this.
Because they have their distinct, there's a few songs here and there that I remember, but remembering any of the songs on the album now is kind of difficult because there's nothing that really stands out.
Mm-hmm. I'm interested to see where they go from here, if they choose to build on this or if this was just a one-off experiment, like the way, in a way, 21st Century Breakdown was. Or Warning was another album that was a one-off folk rock experiment.
Yeah.
So
Warning's still a great album.
I agree.
Yeah.
And
just like 1039 is.
So that's a topic for another time. Yeah. So it's not. I'd probably give it like a 5 out of 10 if I had to rate it at something. 4 out of 10 maybe.
Maybe one week we should just go through all the Green Day albums and kind of digest them.
Yeah, it's definitely on the bottom tier with 1039.
1039 is a masterpiece.
It's better than 1039. It's better than 1039. You know what it reminds me of is a bad version, because the album I'm going to now compare it to is much better than this record. In fact, it's arguably the best one that this band ever put out, but it reminds me a lot of ZZ Top's Eliminator. So if you don't know anything about ZZ Top, and I know
Eliminator,
that's the one with
all their hits,
sharp dressed man and legs and all of that. So that was made in the height of new wave in the early 80s. And ZZ Top was one of the first bands to sort of not in the new wave scene that was like, wow, this is really cool, all this synthesizer stuff and drum machine stuff, all this. So Eliminator was the culmination of them experimenting with that, to the point that Billy Gibbons is pretty much the only person who plays on that album.
Yeah.
The bass, Dusty Hill and Frank Beard are mostly not on that record because they were replaced with technology.
The 80s synth movie, you got to compare to like what it is now, because it probably at the time the whole synth and keyboard thing was kind of a novelty, but now it's
kind of a known thing. But this is sort of like that with Green Day, because they've never done samples before. They did a sample on this one. They've never had like this much keyboards and synth in there, but they do on this one. They've never had, again, I'm pretty sure that Junkies on a High has a drum machine beat. They've never done that before. They did it this. Now, even when they did Nightlife, they never did that. But they did it this time.
Nightlife is not a good song.
No. But like they keep doing what's not expected of them, and I respect that.
I mean, to be fair, they've only really been doing less than normal for the last like 10 years, which isn't really that bad when you look at things.
Yeah. And here's the thing, like, you know, I would rather, I said this to a friend of mine when we were talking about the album, I would rather see a giant swing and a miss. I don't like all the people that are like, why don't you just stick to what you do well? I would rather see a giant swing and a miss in any form of art than playing it safe.
Like, even though they suck for the most part, releasing 3 albums at once is kind of a weird anomaly.
There's a weird like appreciation you have for the whole idea.
Yeah.
Yeah. But that's about all I have to say about that.
Thank you, Forrest Gump.
Yeah. And the music videos are pretty good. I don't know if you've seen any of them, but they're actually going all out with the music videos.
The one with the Stranger Things kid I saw.
That was a good one.
Yeah.
That was a really good one.
With Trey with the mustache.
Yeah.
That's a good one.
Yeah.
I think Trey just most of the time makes the band when it comes to some things,
but yeah, and that's another thing that kind of compares it to ZZ Top Eliminator, because that album, in addition to the hits, it was known for its music videos. Like early MTV, ZZ Top was the band.
Yeah.
Everybody was watching the ZZ Top girls and the car and all of that stuff in the videos. So it's a weird, it's an interesting thing how history repeats itself, because we're kind of going through like with the trap movement, we're kind of going through like a synth kind of revival right now in mainstream music. So it kind of is like the 80s all over again. I wonder if that will lead us to 2020's version of hair metal later on.
Yeah, I mean, every decade has their thing. 90s was grunge.
Yeah.
The 80s was synth. 70s was disco.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
actually, it was only disco for a little while.
Yeah.
It was mostly classic rock.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah.
So, yeah. This is a good inaugural episode of children's programming.
I agree. Episode 1, sports are for the children.
Sports ball is for the children.
Sports ball, I love it.
We'll think of something. So, so we'll think of some more topics, and then we'll be back next week, same about time. I don't want to do that. So we are Matt Dixon and Nick Paradies one more time. I am Nick. He is Dixon. Yes, and I am me.
We are working on a documentary about RST Video, America's most famous video store.
Yes, please check us out at RST Doc on Instagram and RST Documentary on Twitter.
We're very proud of this project. We've got a lot of interesting stuff related to it coming up soon. Be on the lookout as you listen to more episodes. We will get periodic updates.
Like Lookout Records, like the ones that made 1039, the best Green Day album.
All right. Here's my final weird rule I wanted to share. So Australian rules football. If you notice too many men on the field, if you notice too many men on the field, and you're a team captain, you can request the ref to do a head count. And if the ref agrees with you that there's too many men on the field, your opponent's entire score is wiped away.
That's a good way to end it.
Yeah. So you could be up 30-3, but if you have one extra guy step on the field by accident, it's suddenly
if some asshole's like, "Hey, I think we need to do a count. I think there's one more man here." And then if there isn't, does the other team lose their points?
No, there's no penalty.
So there's only a penalty for the other team that you're complaining against.
Yes.
That's phenomenal.
Good old Australia.
We love Australia.
We do.
Good day, mate. We're signing off from children's programming. It's wonderful for us to be with you here.
Follow us on children's programming at children's programming on Instagram.
On Instagram and Twitter, the tweets.
The tweets. I think we're at
2
programming
followers.
Programming children on Twitter.
Wonderful. And we'll see you next time.